Hello and welcome to All the Way Down, a YouTube channel all about the Scottish rock band Biffy Clyro.
All the way down, all the way down.
So I'm releasing this video on the anniversary of Biffy's sixth album, Opposites. It was released in January 2013, and as we all know, Opposites is a double album. But what if it wasn't? Double albums in rock music can often be a shorthand for overindulgence, but there are times where it is justified, where the grandeur and spectacle of having a mammoth collection of songs in one release is often overpowered by the quality of the music. Rolling Stone magazine conducted a readers' poll in 2014 in an attempt to find the top 10 classic double albums of all time. It featured a lot of double albums that are very common elsewhere on online polls, with the Beatles' White Album, Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti, and Bruce Springsteen's The River as the most popular. But don't worry, I didn't expect Biffy to be on this list. Moving a bit closer to home, and the NME's 2015 article, 30 Double Albums You Need to Hear, doesn't feature Opposites at all, choosing to throw in a few hip-hop albums instead, such as Notorious B.I.G. and the Wu-Tang Clan. So why isn't Opposites deemed a must-have album? Opposites was originally announced as a pair of albums, The Land at the End of Our Toes and The Sand at the Core of Our Bones, which later became the names of the individual sides of the album. Listening to it when it was released in 2013, a few songs really stood out to me, with Sounds Like Balloons, The Joke's on Us and Trumpet or Tap being my top three. But as time went on, it was clear there was a couple of weaker songs on there, songs I wouldn't choose to go back to. And with an album comprising of 20 songs, you would have thought the band would go for quality rather than quantity. A Girl and His Cat, as well as Little Hospitals, sound like B-sides to me, and if I had it my way, they should have gone on the Similarities album. Looking at that B-sides album, I believe those two songs fit in there quite seamlessly, with the actual B-side, Sorry and Thanks, sounding far stronger. As a huge fan of the band, I can usually recollect most of the songs from Biffy's back catalogue, either by being given the title, or humming the melody, or even singing a few lines from the chorus. But with The Fog and Skylight I simply can't. And as for Pocket, I can't listen to it without singing Feel of Freeway by David Brent. Opposites was released in January 2013, and recorded in Los Angeles with Garth Richardson, the third and last time Garth would produce them. It went to number 1 in the UK album charts, eventually going platinum and gold in Germany. What's interesting about this album online is that there's an actual record label version of it, consisting of 14 songs, and features the song Pocket as an acoustic bonus track. I can only think that this is the album 14th Floor Records wanted to put out originally, but I can't actually find a physical copy of it anywhere. The album leaves out A Girl and His Cat, The Fog, Little Hospitals, Woo Woo, and Accident Without Emergency. It's a pretty good edit in my opinion, but I still believe it could have been reduced a bit more. To help with this, you only have to look at their next release. Later in 2013, Biffy released their second full-length live album, Opposites Live in Glasgow. It was the successor to Revolution's Live at Wembley, and was exclusively released in Germany, Austria and Switzerland. Out of the 14 tracks on the album, there are 11 songs from Opposites, 7 from side 1 and 7 from side 2, giving a nice balance to the set, and a good representation of the album as a whole. So with the actual album released, the record label edit, and the live incarnation, let's have a look at why the band said Opposites is a double album. Bassist James said in an interview with rockyourlife.fr, "The sand is about the past, and things being brought to you at that point, the difficult things in your life, the things you can't change, the things which are difficult, and the land is about what comes next, and your hopes and fears about the future. How can you make things better, and bring things together in order to move forward?" But does the album actually have opposite themes? Looking at the lyrics from side A, it's clear what the themes are. A crumbling relationship, people drifting away from each other, with some shades of depression. A Guardian article from the year the album was released gives clear indications of what the band was going through at that time. Ben's alcoholism and subsequent crisis talks, as well as Simon and his wife suffering from several miscarriages, a theme that is particularly apparent in the song Biblical. As you can see, side 1 is littered with these kind of ideas, but I really struggle to see a real difference in lyrical content of side 2. In my opinion, it's only in the lyrics of the final 2 songs, Woo Woo and Picture a Knife Fight, do we actually hear some real statements of positive intent. I think this is my biggest issue with this album. Besides a few songs that are a bit weaker than the others, the 2 sides aren't as opposite lyrically as they were reported to be in the first place. And inside the entire spectrum of material on offer here, there's a really strong album buried underneath the premise of a 2-sided opposite theme double album. I wonder what it would look like, and how much stronger it could have been. So I did try my best in this video to have a look at the themes in both sides of it, and to have a look at my favourite songs and some of the songs which I think are a bit weaker. I don't normally look at reviews when it comes to albums, because I think as a listener and as a fan, you are the best reviewer there could possibly be. But I do think it's worth having a look at some of the reviews that I've found. And they basically say the same thing that I've been thinking for a few years in listening to it. Don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic songs on there. I think Sounds Like Balloons is probably in my top 5 songs of the band. And especially Biblical as well, I think is really good. But I just think if it was to be just carved and just whittled down a little bit more, and a bit of attention made to the actual quality of the songs, and if it was just one single album, I think it would be a cracker. And a couple of reviews basically say the same thing. The Guardian give it 3 stars, and they say ultimately that you could actually fit the material here on 1 CD, but they've split it over 2. And they've included a couple of deeply boring songs where they have played things straight. Now, it says a couple. I only think Pocket is the only really straightforward song on that album. In terms of being straightforward, it's not something that the band do an awful lot, and I think Pocket is probably the most. It's kind of hyper. It's a bit too straightforward, that song. And yeah, I think the reviewer's right here in that song is particularly boring. But I do remember that being quite an old song. I think that was a song that was around in the Puzzle era, actually. It was a song that I heard kind of a live bootleg of, and the song was called back then I'm Probably in Your Pocket, and I think it had a different chorus at the time. But yeah, very straightforward, but like I say in the video, it's free love freeway at the end of the day. Sputnik Music gives it a poor rating, and it says the biggest problem with Opposites is not that the material is poor, that in its quest to be an anthem-laden mammoth, it has merely succeeded as being forgettable. I think the album as a whole is on the verge of being forgettable, but there are songs in there that really saves it. I think Sounds Like the Balloons, Biblical, The Joke's on Us, Victory Over the Sun to a point. I think there's some really great moments on there. I'm not entirely sure the album is completely forgettable though. There's a website called Concrete which says, experimentation has always been the lifeblood of Biffy Clyro, but it feels a bit as if the task of a double LP and 78 minutes was just a bit too overwhelming. Had it not been a double album, then perhaps it could have been something wonderful. I think that kind of sums up my views on it sort of pretty beautifully there. If it was to be whittled down, I think it could be up there with one of the greats, not just Biffy albums, one of the greats albums of that year. Neil McCormick from the Daily Telegraph gives it 3 stars out of 5. And he says, if you're already a Biffy Clyro fan, Opposites might be your idea of a masterpiece. If you're new to Biffy, then it's just a headache. That kind of sums it up quite well as well. The Observer shares pretty much the same view, noting that across 80 minutes, there's a sense they might have spread themselves too thinly. So on that note, there's been a few, in the video, obviously the record label did their edit of it, and pretty good edit indeed. But I think if it was to be whittled down to 11 songs, and 11 being your traditional rock album length over the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years maybe, I think I would whittle it down to this. Number 1, Different People. Number 2, Sounds Like Balloons. Number 3, The Joke's on Us. 4, Biblical. Number 5, The Thaw. Number 6, Stinging Bell. Number 7, Modern Magic Formula. Number 8, Spanish Radio. Number 9, Victory Over the Sun. Number 10, Trumpet or Tap. Number 11, Accident Without Emergency. That leaves out, 5 songs from the first side and 4 songs from the second side. So Black Chandelier, Opposite, A Girl and His Cat, The Fog, Little Hospitals, I think they can all go. Pocket, Skylight, Woo Woo, and Picture a Knife Fight, again, not strong enough for me. I don't want to have a look really at the songs that I've taken out of this album. I want to stay positive, so just a few words about the 11 that I've actually chosen. The first song, Different People, is kind of a new direction for the band in terms of the opening track. I've talked about opening songs on albums quite a lot on this channel. And this, with the slow organ, is something quite new because they've always kind of started off quite quickly and quite explosively. It's a great riff when it kicks in. When the Opposites tour started with this, Simon was at the front, and then there was a big cloth concealed with the other band, and they were backlit. So James and Ben were backlit. And if you go on YouTube, the Tea in the Park headline set from 2014, they open with this, and the reception's really good. And of course, when it kicks in, the cloth disappears and the band start off. And the main bulk of the song, when all three of them are singing together, it just sounds really good. So that's staying on there. Sounds Like Balloons for me is the strongest song on the entire album. It's the strongest song that they've done for a couple of years before and after that, in my opinion. The final chorus is just so blistering. When it sort of stops and then it drops back in. It's so good. The Joke's on Us. The guitar riff when Si sings, "Whatever you want from us, what are you staring at?" I mean, can you get any more Biffy than that riff? It's unbelievable. I love the lyric, "Is life just a juggernaut?" I love the word juggernaut, so I love that line. The transitions from verse to pre-chorus to chorus are so smooth, so that's got to stay in. Biblical, this is a song that has really won me back round in seeing the song live. It sums up the theme of the whole record, I think, a relationship falling apart, people moving away from each other, but there are positives in there, you know, let's keep hold of the things we've got kind of thing. The chorus is just so gripping, and it takes all of you, it just takes you on this journey, it's brilliant. The Thaw, I've got a soft spot for this one. I think a lot of people consider this song as more on the weaker side of the album, but I think it really holds up. I love the sleigh bells. The line, "Forget it because you could have tried, how are you unsatisfied?" For one reason or another, that really resonated with me. The secrets in the snow will always come out in the thaw. I think maybe that could have been on side 2, because it's kind of the other end of the spectrum, isn't it? It's looking at it a bit more positively there. Stinging Bell, I think this was the first thing that we heard from this era. It reminds me of Sentimental in that it's quite a simple riff with very flippant lyrics at times. I nearly took this off my list, but just the line, "Grow some balls and speak your mind," I just threw it back in there. Modern Magic Formula, I love Si singing in this one, especially when he sings a cranial "freak out, freak out, freak out." The bass line in the verse is incredible, and I love the line, "There's a white flag burning in the middle of my hand," which is just Si at his best lyrically. Spanish Radio, love the trumpets, the guitar riff in the verse is great. The line, "I got a tree, it's time to cut it to its knees." I mean, if you don't have that song on there, the fact that it's on there, it kind of really connects with the album artwork, so it's got to stay in. Victory Over the Sun, I'm quite torn upon, because I think it's a brilliant song until it gets to the chorus, and I'm trying to figure out why. The song's clearly about Ben's issues with alcoholism and trying to sort of keep the band together during that time. It's very honest lyrically, it's very raw, and I would assume that it's a very special song for the band. You know, to sort of sit down and say, can we write a song about this? Do you mind? I think that's a very honest moment in the band's history. The lyrics, stay special brother, you stay true. You know, you can't really get much clearer than that. It builds up with such a great riff, and then the chorus I think just lets it down. When it's building up to the chorus and starts singing, I can only make you see the moon, you can touch it but that's up to you, this is happening because of you. It's building up so well, and then the chorus just drops back into, I don't know, it's really weak. Trumpet or Tap is a very different song. It sounds unlike everything else on the album, I think. And they have a habit of doing this on every album up to this point. They seem to have a song in there that really surprises me. In Black and Sky, it's Scary Mary, because it's a lot more gentle than what you've heard in the last 10 or 11 songs. Diary of Always on Vertical Bliss just does something that you're not expecting. There's No Such Man as Crasp in Infinity Land. In Puzzle with the interludes with the 9/15ths and the other two. Only Revolutions, Born on a Horse with the synth. I mean, don't really see that coming. And with Opposites, it's this song. It's very sleazy. I've never really heard Psy sing, you know, in the opening lines, time moves so slowly. It's kind of a new way of belting something out for him. So because it's so weird and quite sleazy, it's staying on my version of Opposites. I want to finish my version with Accident Without Emergency. I love Psy's singing in this as well, with the 2 octaves. They work so well together on record. My mum texted me a couple of years ago to say this song featured on an episode of EastEnders when there was a character lying on the bathroom floor. So they've obviously just searched for a lyric and just that song will do. There's a lyric I really don't like though in this one. I'm in the shallow end drowning, it's a soup of flies. The ending reminds me of the last track from Only Revolutions where they're singing voice and electrical noises and all three are chanting something together. But in this, they're singing, if this is a concert then where's the crowd? Let's sing it out and sing it proud. And the lyric, don't you ever want to take sides? I guess that's family suicide. That really resonated with me. And I think that song is really strong and really strong enough to end the album, a lot like Horses from Only Revolutions. So that's my view on Opposites. Should it really have been a double album? I'm not quite sure the themes are strong enough to fit both sides of a double album. If they were to whittle it down and say, right, what are the absolute best songs on this album? Could it have been a 10-11 song classic? I think so.
All the